Mercedes has another engine trick. Verstappen blasts Oscar for selling his soul to McLaren, and Lewis is in trouble for 2026. Let's get into the latest F1 news. Picture this. While most Formula One teams are frantically trying to decode the mysteries of the upcoming 2026 regulations, Mercedes has already cracked one of the biggest secrets. They've developed an engine innovation so clever that it took their competitors months to even understand what was happening. And here's the kicker. The FIA just confirmed it's completely legal. What I'm about to reveal will blow your mind about how Mercedes has positioned themselves for absolute dominance in 2026. This isn't just about having a faster car. This is about rewriting the rules of what's possible in Formula One engine technology. The story begins with what seems like a simple number, 16:1. That's the maximum compression ratio allowed under Formula One regulations. Think of compression ratio as how much the engine squeezes the fuel-air mixture before ignition. Higher compression means more power, more efficiency, and ultimately, faster lap times. Every manufacturer is bound by this limit. Or so we thought. Mercedes engineers discovered something extraordinary. They found a way to exceed this compression ratio limit while staying completely within the rules. The secret lies in thermal expansion, the natural phenomenon where materials expand when heated. During actual racing conditions, when engines reach extreme temperatures, Mercedes has engineered their power unit to dynamically increase compression beyond the static 16:1 limit. This is absolutely revolutionary thinking. While other manufacturers designed their engines around fixed parameters, Mercedes realized that the regulations only specify the compression ratio under standard conditions. When the engine heats up during racing, thermal expansion allows their system to achieve higher compression ratios naturally, legally, and effectively. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Mercedes didn't stumble upon this innovation yesterday. They've been developing this concept for years, possibly since the 2026 regulations were first announced. While their rivals focused on traditional approaches to power unit development, Mercedes was thinking several steps ahead. The timing reveals everything about Mercedes' strategic brilliance. Formula One engine development operates on completely different timelines than aerodynamic development. While teams could only begin wind tunnel testing for 2026 aerodynamics from January 1st of last year, power unit development has been ongoing for several years. Mercedes used this extended timeline to their advantage, exploring innovative solutions that others never considered. What's particularly fascinating is how Mercedes approached this development. They didn't operate in secrecy, hoping to slip their innovation past the regulators. Instead, they took the opposite approach, complete transparency with the FIA. They communicated openly about their compression ratio concept, ensuring regulatory compliance before committing massive resources to development. This transparency strategy was absolutely crucial. Formula One engines represent investments of hundreds of millions of dollars and years of development time. Making fundamental changes to an engine design just months before a new regulation cycle would be catastrophically expensive and practically impossible. Mercedes couldn't afford to gamble on regulatory approval. They needed certainty. The FIA's confirmation that Mercedes' compression ratio innovation is legal validates not just the technology, but Mercedes' entire approach to 2026 preparation. While other manufacturers are now scrambling to understand and potentially replicate this innovation, Mercedes has been refining and optimizing their system for potentially over a year. Red Bull Racing, Mercedes' primary championship rival, is reportedly working on a similar compression ratio approach. However, they're significantly behind Mercedes in development. This timing disadvantage could prove decisive when the 2026 season begins. In Formula One, being first to market with breakthrough technology often translates directly into championship success. The implications extend far beyond simple power gains. Higher effective compression ratios improve fuel efficiency, which becomes critically important under 2026 regulations. The new rules mandate increased electrical power output while maintaining strict fuel flow limitations. Mercedes' innovation potentially solves multiple regulatory challenges simultaneously. Consider the broader context of Formula One's 2026 transformation. These regulations represent the most significant technical overhaul in decades, combining revolutionary aerodynamic concepts with dramatically different power unit requirements. Success in 2026 won't depend solely on having the best aerodynamics or the most powerful engine. It requires perfect integration of both elements. Mercedes appears to understand this integration challenge better than anyone. While competitors focus on individual components, Mercedes is developing holistic solutions that address multiple regulatory demands simultaneously. Their compression ratio innovation exemplifies this systems thinking approach. The competitive landscape heading into 2026 suddenly looks very different. Mercedes, which struggled during the early ground effect era of current regulations, has positioned themselves as potential favorites for the next regulatory cycle. Their transparency with the FIA, combined with years of development lead time, creates formidable advantages that competitors will struggle to overcome. But this story reveals something deeper about Formula One innovation. The most significant breakthroughs often come not from revolutionary new technologies, but from revolutionary new thinking about existing possibilities. Mercedes didn't invent thermal expansion. They simply recognized its potential application to compression ratio regulations. This pattern repeats throughout Formula One history. The most successful innovations combine deep technical understanding with creative interpretation of regulations. Mercedes's compression ratio concept perfectly embodies this principle, using fundamental physics to achieve competitive advantages within regulatory constraints. The timing of the FIA's confirmation is particularly significant. With 2026 regulations approaching rapidly, any major changes to engine development would be practically impossible for most manufacturers. Mercedes' early regulatory approval ensures their innovation reaches the grid, while competitors face the difficult choice of attempting rushed development or accepting competitive disadvantages. Looking ahead, this compression ratio innovation might represent just the beginning of Mercedes's 2026 advantages. If they've achieved such breakthrough thinking in one area of power unit development, what other innovations might they have in development? The transparency they demonstrated with the FIA suggests confidence in their overall regulatory compliance. The broader Formula One community will be watching Mercedes's 2026 performance with intense interest. If their compression ratio innovation translates into significant competitive advantages, it could reshape how manufacturers approach future regulatory cycles. The lesson is clear: start early, think creatively, and maintain complete transparency with regulators. This story ultimately demonstrates why Mercedes remains one of Formula One's most formidable organizations. Despite recent championship disappointments, they continue developing breakthrough technologies that could define the sport's future. Their compression ratio innovation proves that in Formula One, the most important battles are often won years before they're fought on track. As we approach the 2026 season, remember this moment when Mercedes revealed their engine masterstroke. This could be the innovation that returns them to championship-winning form and establishes their dominance for years to come. Picture this. You're leading the Formula One championship by 34 points. Your team gives you an order that could cost you the title. Do you obey or rebel? Well, Max Verstappen just dropped a bombshell about what happened when Oscar Piastri faced exactly that choice, and his words are sending shockwaves through the racing world. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the most explosive Formula One stories. Today, we're unpacking Verstappen's brutal assessment of Piastri's 2025 season and why the three-time world champion believes following team orders can destroy a driver's career. Trust me, you won't believe what Max actually said about selling your soul in Formula One. Before we get into the controversy, let's set the stage. The 2025 Formula One season delivered one of the most dramatic championship battles in recent memory. McLaren had finally built a car capable of fighting for titles, and they found themselves in the enviable position of having two drivers who could realistically win the championship. Sounds perfect, right? Well, that's where things get complicated. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were both genuine contenders, but McLaren made a decision that would define their season. Instead of backing one horse early, they committed to keeping things fair between their drivers. Equal treatment, equal opportunities. May the best man win. It sounds noble in theory, but as we'll see, this philosophy would create some of the most controversial moments of the entire season. The turning point came at Monza, the Italian Grand Prix. And this is where our story gets really interesting. Going into that weekend, Oscar Piastri wasn't just in the title fight, he was dominating it. The young Australian had a commanding 34-point lead over his teammate Norris. Think about that for a second. In modern Formula One, where points are handed out more generously than ever before, a 34-point gap represents serious breathing room. But then came the pit stops, and this is where everything went sideways. During the race, Piastri found himself ahead on track when the pit window opened. In a normal scenario, the leading car gets priority for strategy. But McLaren had other plans. They brought Norris in first, despite him running behind Piastri on the road. Then disaster struck for the championship leader. Piastri's pit stop was painfully slow. Through no fault of his own, precious seconds ticked away as his mechanics struggled with the tire changes. When he rejoined the track, he found himself behind Norris, who had benefited from both the preferential strategy call and Piastri's mechanical misfortune. This is where most drivers would accept the racing gods had spoken and move on with the race. But McLaren's commitment to fairness created an impossible situation. They felt responsible for Piastri's lost track position and made a decision that would define the championship battle. Team radio crackled to life with an order that stunned everyone listening. Norris needed to give the position back to Piastri. Now, imagine being Lando Norris in that moment. You're fighting for your first world championship. You've just gained a crucial position through strategy and your teammates' bad luck, and suddenly your own team is telling you to hand it back. It's the kind of moment that tests everything a driver believes about competition and team loyalty. The order sent shockwaves through the paddock, but what happened next was even more surprising. Norris initially questioned the decision over the radio, as any competitive driver would. But when Piastri heard about McLaren's intention to swap positions, he did something that would later draw harsh criticism from Max Verstappen. He hesitated, then questioned the call himself. You could hear the uncertainty in Piastri's voice over the team radio. Here was a driver leading the championship who was being handed a position by his own team, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to take it. After some back and forth with his race engineer, Piastri ultimately accepted the position swap. Norris dutifully moved aside, allowing his teammate to reclaim the lead. At the time, many observers praised both drivers for their professionalism. Norris showed remarkable maturity in following team orders that clearly went against his immediate interests. Piastri demonstrated sportsmanship by initially questioning whether he deserved the position back. It seemed like McLaren had successfully navigated a difficult situation while maintaining their commitment to fairness. But that's not how Max Verstappen saw it, and his perspective offers a completely different lens through which to view these events. In a recent interview, the Red Bull driver was asked directly whether he would have handled the situation the same way Piastri did. His response was immediate and uncompromising. Verstappen didn't just say he would have acted differently. He went nuclear, claiming that, by following those team orders, Piastri had fundamentally compromised his position within the team. According to Max, complying with such instructions without a clear sporting justification represents a betrayal of everything a racing driver should stand for. The three-time world champion's logic is brutal but clear. Once you show a willingness to hand back positions you've gained on track, regardless of the circumstances, you've established a precedent. Your team now knows they can manipulate race results to suit their broader strategy, and you've lost the power to say no. In Verstappen's words, you've essentially given them carte blanche to do whatever they want with your career. But here's where Verstappen's criticism becomes even more pointed. He specifically emphasized that Piastri wasn't just any driver in any situation. This was the championship leader, someone who had earned the right to be selfish about his title aspirations. From Max's perspective, that 34-point advantage should have made Piastri untouchable when it came to team manipulation. Think about it from Verstappen's competitive mindset. He's a driver who has never shied away from conflict with his own team when he felt his interests were being compromised. Whether it was questioning Red Bull's strategy calls or pushing back against decisions he disagreed with, Max has consistently prioritized his own championship ambitions above team harmony. His success suggests this approach works. The contrast with Piastri's handling of the situation couldn't be more stark. Where Verstappen sees a moment that demanded ruthless self-interest, the McLaren driver chose cooperation and team unity. Where Max would have drawn a line in the sand, Oscar chose to trust his team's judgment about fairness and sporting integrity. But here's the thing that makes Verstappen's criticism so cutting. The 2025 championship didn't end with Piastri holding that trophy aloft in Abu Dhabi. Despite his commanding position at Monza, despite being 34 points clear of his nearest rival, the Australian ultimately finished the season in third place, behind new world champion Lando Norris, and behind a resurgent Max Verstappen, who nearly pulled off one of the greatest comeback victories in Formula One history. The numbers tell a story of what might have been. Verstappen's own season was a masterclass in never giving up, climbing from 104 points behind to finish just 2 points short of the title. His recovery was so impressive that both his fellow drivers and team principals voted him the best performer of the season, even though he didn't win the championship. Meanwhile, Piastri's title challenge collapsed in the season's second half. The driver who had looked like a sure bet for the championship in Italy ended up watching his teammates celebrate in the final race. It's impossible to say whether the Monza incident directly contributed to this collapse, but Verstappen's criticism suggests that moment represented something larger about Piastri's approach to championship fighting. When pressed about his harsh assessment, Verstappen doubled down on his position. He maintained that had he been driving that McLaren car, the championship would have been decided much earlier in the season. It's exactly the kind of confident, bordering on arrogant statement that has made Max both beloved and reviled throughout his career. Lando Norris, perhaps unsurprisingly, didn't appreciate Verstappen's commentary about his team's internal dynamics. The new world champion fired back with his own pointed remarks, suggesting that Max was speaking about situations he didn't fully understand. Norris characterized Verstappen's comments as typical Red Bull aggression and dismissed much of what his rivals said as nonsense. But Verstappen remained unmoved by the criticism. Even when given multiple opportunities to soften his stance or clarify his remarks, he stuck to his guns. In his view, the statement about winning the title earlier in a McLaren wasn't trash talk. It was simply fact. This unwavering confidence in his own abilities, even in defeat, exemplifies the mentality that has made him one of Formula One's most successful drivers. The broader implications of this controversy extend far beyond the specific incident at Monza. Verstappen's critique touches on fundamental questions about what it means to be a championship-caliber driver in modern Formula One. Is cooperation and team spirit more valuable than ruthless self-interest? Can you win titles while prioritizing fairness over personal advantage? Different drivers throughout history have answered these questions in different ways. Some, like Verstappen, have built their careers on an uncompromising pursuit of victory. Others have found success through building strong relationships within their teams and earning loyalty through cooperation. There's no single path to championship success. What makes this debate so fascinating is how it reflects the personalities of the drivers involved. Verstappen's criticism of Piastri reveals as much about Max's own competitive philosophy as it does about Oscar's choices. For a driver who has never been afraid to challenge authority or prioritize his own interests, Piastri's willingness to follow controversial team orders represents everything he stands against. The timing of these comments is also significant. With new regulations coming into Formula One for 2026, the competitive order is likely to be reshuffled once again. Teams that have struggled for years might suddenly find themselves with championship-capable cars, while current frontrunners could fall back into the midfield. In this environment, every competitive advantage matters. For young drivers like Piastri, Verstappen's words serve as both warning and challenge. The message is clear. If you want to win championships at the highest level, you can't afford to give away positions or compromise your competitive instincts for the sake of team harmony. Championship opportunities are rare and precious, and showing weakness in crucial moments can haunt a career for years. As we look ahead to the 2026 season and beyond, this controversy will likely continue to shape how we evaluate both drivers. Verstappen's willingness to speak so bluntly about a competitor's choices demonstrates the psychological warfare that exists at the highest levels of motorsport. Meanwhile, how Piastri responds to this criticism, both in words and on track, will reveal much about his championship aspirations going forward. The truth is, only time will tell who had the right approach. Maybe Verstappen's ruthless competitiveness represents the gold standard for championship fighting. Or perhaps Piastri's cooperation and team-first mentality will ultimately prove more successful in the long run. What's certain is that this debate has added another layer of intrigue to what promises to be a fascinating rivalry in the years to come. What do you think about Verstappen's brutal assessment? Was Piastri wrong to follow those team orders, or was Max out of line with his criticism? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more Formula One drama and analysis. Until next time, keep racing. Picture this: a 7-time world champion, considered by many as the greatest driver of all time, struggling to find answers while his teammate dominates. Meanwhile, another racing legend in his mid-40s continues to extract magic from an uncompetitive car. Today, we're diving deep into why Formula One insiders are backing Fernando Alonso over Lewis Hamilton heading into the crucial 2026 season, and what this means for both legends' legacies. The 2025 season was supposed to be Lewis Hamilton's triumphant homecoming to Ferrari. Instead, it turned into a nightmare that nobody saw coming. The British superstar, who had conquered every challenge thrown at him throughout his illustrious career, suddenly looked lost behind the wheel of the famous red car. For the first time in recent memory, Hamilton appeared vulnerable, human, and, frankly, out of his depth. The numbers tell a brutal story. Hamilton finished the year without a single podium, trailing his teammate Charles Leclerc by a staggering 86 points. But statistics only scratch the surface of what was a deeply troubling campaign for the sport's most successful driver. The real concern wasn't just his lack of results, it was how he carried himself throughout the ordeal. Gone was the composed, calculating Hamilton we'd grown accustomed to seeing. In his place stood a frustrated figure who publicly suggested Ferrari should change driver and described the season as his worst ever. These weren't just moments of disappointment. They were cracks in the armor of a champion who had always prided himself on grace under pressure. Former Formula One driver Johnny Herbert, who witnessed Hamilton's struggles firsthand as an FIA steward, didn't mince words about what he observed. Herbert saw a driver who, for the first time in his career, couldn't find a way around the car's fundamental problems. This was particularly striking because Hamilton had built his reputation on being able to extract performance from even the most challenging machinery. The comparison with his teammate became increasingly uncomfortable as the season progressed. While Hamilton struggled to understand the Ferrari, Leclerc seemed to dance with it, finding speed and consistency that his legendary teammate simply couldn't match. This wasn't just about raw pace. It was about adaptation, problem-solving, and the mental resilience that separates good drivers from great ones. Herbert drew parallels to Sebastian Vettel's career trajectory, noting how the German's fortunes changed when blown diffuser technology was banned. Sometimes, a driver's style becomes so intertwined with specific car characteristics that regulatory changes can fundamentally alter their effectiveness. The question hanging over Hamilton was whether the ground effect-era cars simply didn't suit his natural driving approach. But while Hamilton struggled at Ferrari, another aging champion was quietly demonstrating that experience and skill could still triumph over machinery limitations. Fernando Alonso, now 44 years old and driving for the often disappointing Aston Martin team, continued to squeeze remarkable performances from an uncompetitive car. Race after race, Alonso maximized his opportunities, often dragging the green machine into points positions it had no business achieving. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Here was Hamilton, driving for one of Formula One's most successful teams, looking defeated and confused. Meanwhile, Alonso was extracting every ounce of performance from a midfield car, reminding everyone why he's considered one of the sport's greatest talents. The Spaniard's hunger remained undimmed, his racecraft as sharp as ever. This dichotomy didn't go unnoticed by those within the paddock. Herbert, when asked to choose between the two veterans for a hypothetical competitive drive, admitted he would back Alonso. This wasn't a decision made lightly. It represented a seismic shift in how insiders viewed these two legends of the sport. The reasoning behind Herbert's choice was compelling. Alonso had consistently demonstrated his ability to overperform in subpar machinery, while Hamilton had struggled to match his teammate in supposedly superior equipment. The Spaniard's performances suggested he still possessed that rare ability to transcend a car's limitations through pure skill and determination. Age became a fascinating subplot in this comparison. Both drivers are well into their 40s, an age where most athletes begin to show signs of decline. However, their responses to the challenges of aging appeared markedly different. Alonso seemed energized by the fight, determined to prove he could still compete at the highest level. Hamilton, conversely, appeared weary, as if the accumulated pressure of maintaining excellence had finally taken its toll. Damon Hill, the 1996 world champion, offered an intriguing perspective on Hamilton's situation. He suggested that the British driver might have reached a point where extracting performance from a difficult car no longer motivated him. After achieving virtually everything possible in the sport, the daily grind of fighting for minor gains might have lost its appeal. However, Hill also provided hope for Hamilton's future prospects. He believed that given competitive machinery, the seven-time champion could rediscover his fire. The theory was simple. Hamilton's motivation issues stemmed from frustration with uncompetitive cars rather than a fundamental decline in ability. A whiff of victory might be all it takes to reignite his championship-winning mentality. The upcoming 2026 season carries enormous significance for both drivers and their respective teams. New regulations will reset the competitive order, potentially offering fresh opportunities for success. For Hamilton and Ferrari, this represents a crucial chance to salvage their partnership and deliver the championship success both parties desperately crave. Ferrari's struggles weren't entirely Hamilton's fault. The team's car development appeared to hit several dead ends throughout 2025, leaving both drivers with machinery that couldn't compete consistently at the front. However, the way each driver handled these challenges revealed important differences in their current mindsets and capabilities. Leclerc's ability to extract more from the difficult Ferrari raised uncomfortable questions about Hamilton's current form. If the car was capable of better results in his teammates' hands, what did that say about Hamilton's own performance level? These weren't questions anyone expected to be asking about a driver of his caliber, yet they became impossible to ignore as the season progressed. The psychological aspect of Hamilton's struggles cannot be understated. For a driver accustomed to winning, the transition to midfield battles and point-scoring missions represented a fundamental shift in expectations. His visible frustration during post-race interviews suggested someone grappling not just with car problems, but with a crisis of confidence that extended beyond mere technical issues. Meanwhile, Alonso's situation at Aston Martin offered a different narrative entirely. Despite driving for a team with limited resources compared to Ferrari, the Spaniard consistently maximized every opportunity. His performances served as a masterclass in racecraft, demonstrating how experience and skill could compensate for mechanical disadvantages. The contrast extended beyond on-track performance to their respective attitudes and public personas. While Hamilton appeared increasingly dejected as the season wore on, Alonso maintained his characteristic intensity and focus. The Spaniard seemed to view every race as an opportunity to prove doubters wrong, while Hamilton gave the impression of someone questioning whether the struggle was worth the effort. Looking ahead to 2026, both Aston Martin and Ferrari are positioning themselves For improved competitiveness, Aston Martin has secured the services of legendary designer Adrian Newey and formed a partnership with Honda, creating optimism about their future prospects. Ferrari, meanwhile, is banking on regulatory changes to reset their development path and provide Hamilton with the competitive machinery he needs. The stakes couldn't be higher for Hamilton personally. At 41 years old, his remaining opportunities to add to his championship tally are limited. The 2026 season may represent his last realistic chance to claim that elusive 8th world title and cement his status as Formula One's greatest driver. Failure to deliver could cast a shadow over his entire Ferrari chapter and raise questions about the timing of his team switch. For Alonso, the 2026 regulations offer a different kind of opportunity. While he may be further from championship contention, strong performances could validate his decision to continue racing and demonstrate that age need not be a barrier to excellence. His recent showings suggest he remains capable of fighting at the front given competitive machinery. The broader implications of this comparison extend beyond these two drivers to questions about longevity, adaptation, and the mental aspects of elite performance. Hamilton's struggles illustrate how even the greatest champions can face unexpected challenges, while Alonso's consistency demonstrates the value of experience and unwavering determination. As we approach the 2026 season, the narrative surrounding these two legends continues to evolve. Hamilton faces the pressure of justifying his move to Ferrari and proving he can still perform at championship level. Alonso, meanwhile, has the opportunity to show that his best days aren't behind him and that hunger can triumph over youth. The coming months will be crucial for both drivers as they prepare for what could be defining seasons in their careers. Hamilton must rediscover the form and confidence that made him a 7-time champion, while Alonso will look to build on his recent performances and potentially challenge for victories once again. Whatever happens in 2026, this comparison between Hamilton and Alonso has already provided fascinating insights into the challenges of maintaining excellence at the highest level of motorsport. Their contrasting fortunes serve as a reminder that in Formula One, reputation and past success guarantee nothing. Every season brings new challenges, and only those who can adapt and evolve will continue to thrive. The stage is set for a compelling chapter in both drivers' careers, one that could reshape how we remember these two giants of the sport. What if I told you that Aston Martin and Honda have discovered a secret weapon that could completely change their fortunes in 2026, and it's not what you think? While everyone's talking about Adrian Newey joining the team, there's another partnership flying under the radar that might be even more crucial for their championship ambitions. Formula One is about to undergo one of the most dramatic transformations in its history. The 2026 regulations aren't just tweaking the existing formula, they're completely rewriting the rulebook. And while teams are scrambling to adapt to new aerodynamic requirements and power unit specifications, Aston Martin has quietly positioned themselves to exploit an advantage that most fans don't even know exists. Let me take you back to where this story really begins. After that incredible start to 2023, when Aston Martin looked like genuine championship contenders, reality hit hard. 2 seasons of midfield mediocrity followed, leaving team owner Lawrence Stroll with a burning question. How do you transform a team with title aspirations into actual title winners? The answer came through a series of blockbuster signings that sent shockwaves through the paddock. Adrian Newey, the legendary aerodynamicist who's designed championship-winning cars for 3 different teams. Enrico Cardile, Ferrari's former technical director. Andy Cowell, the mastermind behind Mercedes' dominant hybrid power units. On paper, this looks like a dream team assembly, but here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. While everyone was fixated on these headline-grabbing appointments, Aston Martin was making another strategic move that could prove equally important. In early 2023, they announced their decision to switch from Mercedes power units to Honda for the 2026 season. At first glance, this seemed like a risky gamble. Why abandon the proven Mercedes power that had served them reasonably well? The answer reveals everything about how modern Formula One actually works behind the scenes. When you're a customer team receiving engines from another manufacturer, You're essentially building your car around components that someone else designed for their own priorities. Mercedes optimizes their power unit for their own chassis. They make decisions about packaging, cooling requirements, and integration points based on what works best for the silver arrows. As a customer, you adapt. You compromise. You work within constraints that weren't designed with your car in mind. For a team with championship ambitions, this relationship felt increasingly limiting. Lawrence Stroll didn't invest hundreds of millions of dollars to play second fiddle to anyone. The Honda partnership changes this dynamic completely. Instead of adapting to someone else's vision, Aston Martin and Honda are developing their 2026 power unit as true partners. Every decision about packaging, every choice about component layout, every optimization for performance, it's all done with Aston Martin's chassis requirements as an equal priority. This level of integration becomes absolutely crucial when you understand just how different the 2026 power units will be. We're not talking about evolutionary changes here. The new regulations represent a fundamental shift in how Formula One cars generate and deploy power. The hybrid system becomes more prominent, the internal combustion engine changes significantly, and the entire energy management philosophy gets rewritten. Think about it this way. Since 2022, engine reliability has been incredibly strong. Mechanical failures that force cars to retire have become rare events. This reliability has contributed to more predictable races, fewer safety car interventions, and generally less chaos on track. But 2026 threatens to disrupt this stability entirely. When you introduce completely new power unit architecture, you're essentially starting from scratch in terms of reliability. Teams that have spent years perfecting their current engines suddenly find themselves dealing with unknown failure modes, untested components, and completely different stress patterns. It's like switching from a well-established road to an unmapped wilderness. In this environment, having complete control over your power unit development becomes invaluable. While customer teams will have to wait for their suppliers to identify and fix problems, Aston Martin and Honda can respond immediately to any issues they discover. They can prioritize reliability improvements that specifically benefit their car's characteristics. But here's where this story gets really interesting, and where we discover Aston Martin's true secret weapon. While the partnership with Honda provides the foundation for independence, there's another element to their 2026 strategy that could prove even more decisive: their fuel supplier. Most Formula One fans think of fuel as a commodity. You put it in the tank, it burns in the engine, and that's the end of the story. But in the highly regulated world of modern Formula One, fuel represents one of the few remaining areas where significant performance differences are possible. The 2026 regulations mandate the use of sustainable fuels, marking a major step forward in Formula One's environmental responsibility. But here's the crucial detail that most people miss. While the fuel must meet sustainability requirements, suppliers have considerable freedom in how they achieve this goal. Different fuel companies can develop different formulations, different chemical compositions, and different performance characteristics, all while meeting the same sustainability standards. Some fuels will inevitably prove more efficient than others. Some will generate more power when they interact with specific engine designs. Some will provide better reliability or improved thermal characteristics. This is where Aston Martin's partnership with Aramco becomes a potential game changer. While other teams work with fuel suppliers who are just entering the sustainable fuel arena, Aramco brings something unique to the table: extensive real-world experience with sustainable fuels in competitive motorsport. Last season, Aramco supplied sustainable fuel to Formula 2 cars. This wasn't a laboratory experiment or a theoretical exercise. It was actual race fuel, used in actual competitions, under actual competitive pressures. The lessons learned from this experience, the data collected, the problems solved, all of this knowledge directly benefits Aston Martin's 2026 preparations. But Aramco's advantage goes deeper than just experience. As one of the world's largest energy companies, they've invested heavily in sustainable fuel research and development. Their resources for developing advanced fuel formulations dwarf those of smaller suppliers. They can explore chemical compositions that others simply can't afford to investigate. The potential impact of superior fuel becomes clear when you consider how modern Formula One engines operate. These are incredibly sophisticated machines, with precise fuel injection systems, advanced combustion chamber designs, and highly optimized timing maps. A fuel that burns more efficiently, produces more energy per unit, or generates power across a broader rev range could provide a measurable performance advantage. In a sport where victories are often decided by margins of hundredths of seconds, even a small fuel-related power advantage could prove decisive. Imagine if Aramco's sustainable fuel formulation generates an extra 5 horsepower compared to competitors. Over the course of a lap at Monza, that might translate to a tenth of a second advantage. Multiply that over an entire race, and you're looking at potentially race-winning margins. The beauty of this advantage is its subtlety. When a team wins because of superior aerodynamics, everyone can see the innovative wing designs or unique bodywork solutions. When a team dominates through mechanical grip, observers can analyze suspension systems and tire strategies. But fuel-related advantages are largely invisible to competitors and spectators alike. This creates what strategists call an asymmetric advantage. You benefit from superior performance while your competitors struggle to identify the source of your speed. They might suspect fuel-related gains, but proving it requires extensive analysis and reverse engineering that may not be feasible during a competitive season. The timing of Aston Martin's strategic moves couldn't be more perfect. By 2026, their Honda partnership will be fully mature, their Adrian Newey-designed chassis will be race-ready, and their Aramco fuel advantage will be fully realized. These 3 elements, complete power unit control, aerodynamic excellence, and superior fuel technology, could create a powerful combination that's difficult for competitors to match. Consider the development feedback loop this creates. When Aston Martin discovers that their car performs better with specific fuel characteristics, they can work directly with Aramco to optimize the formulation. When Honda identifies engine modifications that could benefit from different fuel properties, Aramco can adjust their development accordingly. When Adrian Newey designs aerodynamic solutions that change the car's cooling requirements, both Honda and Aramco can adapt their contributions to support the overall package. This level of integration simply isn't possible when you're working with multiple suppliers who have conflicting priorities and limited communication with each other. Customer teams often find themselves managing compromises between different suppliers, each optimizing for their own objectives rather than the overall car performance. The psychological impact on competitors could be significant as well. Teams that have grown comfortable with Mercedes or Ferrari power might find themselves questioning their supplier relationships when Aston Martin starts consistently outperforming cars with similar aerodynamic efficiency. The uncertainty about whether the advantage comes from the Honda engine, the Aramco fuel, or the integration between them could force competitors into costly development programs chasing shadows. Looking at the broader competitive landscape for 2026, most teams are focusing their preparation on the obvious changes: new aerodynamic regulations, revised power unit specifications, and updated safety requirements. But the fuel transition represents an equally significant shift that receives far less attention in the media and paddock speculation. Teams that treat fuel as an afterthought, assuming all suppliers will deliver roughly equivalent performance, could find themselves at a serious disadvantage. Meanwhile, teams like Aston Martin that have invested in understanding and optimizing this element of performance could discover a significant competitive edge. The sustainable fuel transition also creates opportunities for innovation that didn't exist with traditional petroleum-based fuels. New chemical compositions, novel additives, and advanced refining techniques all become possible when you're not constrained by conventional fuel chemistry. Companies like Aramco, with their massive research capabilities and sustainable energy focus, are ideally positioned to explore these possibilities. From a strategic standpoint, Aston Martin's approach demonstrates sophisticated long-term thinking. Rather than simply trying to outspend competitors on driver salaries or facility upgrades, they've identified systematic advantages that could provide sustained competitive benefits. The Honda partnership gives them control over their destiny. The Aramco relationship provides a potential performance edge that competitors will struggle to replicate. The combination of these factors could create what business strategists call a sustainable competitive advantage. Benefits that persist over time because they're difficult for competitors to duplicate. Other teams can hire talented designers, build impressive facilities, or sign expensive drivers. But replicating the specific integration between Aston Martin, Honda, and Aramco would require years of relationship building and joint development. As we approach the 2026 season, the Formula One grid looks more competitive than it has in years. Multiple teams have realistic championship ambitions. New regulations will shuffle the competitive order, and the introduction of sustainable fuels adds another variable to an already complex equation. In this environment, teams that have prepared most thoroughly for the regulatory changes will likely emerge as early leaders. Aston Martin's comprehensive approach, combining aerodynamic expertise, power unit independence, and fuel optimization, positions them to be among these early beneficiaries. The true test will come when the 2026 cars take to the track for the first time. Will the theoretical advantages translate into actual lap time? Can the integration between Honda's power unit and Aramco's fuel deliver the performance gains that look possible on paper? Will Adrian Newey's aerodynamic package complement these power unit advantages effectively? But based on the strategic foundation they've built, Aston Martin appears to have positioned themselves as well as any team for the challenges ahead. While competitors focus on individual elements of the new regulations, Aston Martin has created an integrated approach that could prove more than the sum of its parts. The secret weapon isn't just the Honda partnership or the Aramco fuel or the Adrian Newey designs taken individually. It's the combination of all three elements, working together in ways that competitors will struggle to replicate, that could finally transform Lawrence Stroll's championship ambitions into championship reality. When the 2026 season begins, don't be surprised if Aston Martin emerges as an unexpected force at the front of the grid. Their secret weapon has been hiding in plain sight all along. What happens when one of Formula One's greatest champions faces his most challenging season ever? Lewis Hamilton's debut year with Ferrari in 2025 became a story of struggle, determination, and an unwavering focus on redemption. But behind the disappointing results lies a fascinating tale of preparation and strategic planning that could reshape the entire landscape of Formula One racing. The 2025 season will be remembered as one of the most difficult chapters in Hamilton's legendary career. For only the second time in his Formula One journey, the seven-time world champion failed to secure a single race victory. Even more shocking was his complete absence from the podium throughout the entire campaign. This wasn't just a bad season for Hamilton personally. It represented a stark reality check for Ferrari's championship aspirations. The writing was on the wall early in the season when it became clear that Ferrari's car package simply wasn't competitive enough to challenge for the championship. Apart from a single sprint race victory for Hamilton in China, the team struggled to find consistent pace throughout the year. Even that lone bright spot was overshadowed by controversy when both Ferrari cars were disqualified from the main race due to technical violations regarding plank wear regulations. The statistics paint a harsh picture of Hamilton's individual performance during his first season in red. Throughout the year, he consistently struggled to match the pace and results of his teammate Charles Leclerc. This created an uncomfortable dynamic within the team and raised questions about Hamilton's ability to adapt to the Ferrari philosophy and car characteristics. The pressure mounted as fans and media began questioning whether the legendary driver was past his prime. However, what makes this story truly compelling is how Hamilton responded to these challenges. Rather than dwelling on the immediate disappointments, he made a crucial decision that would define his approach to the remainder of his Ferrari career. Hamilton became the primary advocate within the team for shifting focus entirely to the 2026 season and the new technical regulations that would come into effect. This strategic pivot wasn't just about accepting defeat in 2025. It represented a calculated gamble on the future. Hamilton understood that the new regulations for 2026 would create opportunities for teams to completely reimagine their approach to car design and development. With his vast experience and technical knowledge, He saw this as Ferrari's best chance to return to championship-winning form. The decision to prioritize 2026 development came with significant risks. It meant essentially writing off any remaining hopes for the 2025 season and accepting short-term pain for potential long-term gain. However, Hamilton's influence within Ferrari proved decisive in convincing the team to make this bold, strategic choice. His reputation and championship pedigree gave weight to his arguments about the importance of getting ahead in the development race for the new regulations. Hamilton's involvement in the 2026 preparations goes far beyond typical driver responsibilities. Throughout the 2025 season, he maintained an intensive schedule of simulator work, providing detailed feedback on early concepts for the new car. This technical input from a driver of his caliber is invaluable for Ferrari's engineers as they work to understand the complexities of the new regulations and how to maximize performance within those constraints. The scope of Hamilton's contributions extends to fundamental aspects of team structure and operations. He has prepared comprehensive reports identifying areas where Ferrari needs to improve their processes and methodologies. These documents represent years of accumulated knowledge from his time at McLaren and Mercedes, offering Ferrari insights into best practices from championship-winning organizations. Hamilton's feedback covers everything from technical car development to operational efficiency and strategic decision-making processes. His unique perspective as someone who has worked with multiple championship-winning teams gives Ferrari access to a wealth of knowledge about what it takes to consistently compete at the highest level. This institutional knowledge transfer could prove just as valuable as his on-track contributions. The preparation for 2026 also involves extensive collaboration between Hamilton and Ferrari's engineering teams. Rather than simply providing feedback, he has been actively involved in development meetings and technical discussions. This hands-on approach ensures that the new car will be developed with direct input from someone who understands exactly what characteristics a championship-winning Formula One car needs to possess. The psychological aspect of this situation cannot be underestimated. For a driver of Hamilton's stature, accepting a season without victories or podiums requires tremendous mental fortitude. However, his focus on 2026 has provided a clear sense of purpose and direction that helps maintain motivation during difficult periods. This mental resilience will be crucial as Ferrari works to develop a competitive package for the new regulations. The technical challenges facing Ferrari for 2026 are substantial. The new regulations will introduce significant changes to car design philosophy, aerodynamics, and power unit specifications. Teams that can adapt most effectively to these changes will gain competitive advantages that could last for multiple seasons. Hamilton's experience with previous regulation changes gives Ferrari valuable insights into how to navigate this transition successfully. From a strategic standpoint, Hamilton's early focus on 2026 represents a masterclass in long-term thinking. While other drivers might have continued pushing for immediate improvements to salvage something from the 2025 season, Hamilton recognized that resources would be better invested in future success. This kind of strategic patience is characteristic of championship-level thinking. The collaboration between Hamilton and Ferrari's technical team has already begun yielding insights that will influence the 2026 car's development. Early simulator work has helped identify key areas where the new regulations create opportunities for innovation and competitive advantage. This early start in development could prove crucial in a field where marginal gains often determine championship success. Looking ahead to 2026, the combination of new regulations and Hamilton's extensive preparation creates an intriguing scenario. If Ferrari can successfully implement the changes and improvements Hamilton has advocated for, the team could emerge as serious championship contenders. The new regulations essentially reset the competitive order, giving every team a fresh opportunity to establish themselves at the front of the field. The ultimate success of this strategy won't be known until the 2026 season begins, but the groundwork being laid now could determine Ferrari's competitiveness for years to come. Hamilton's willingness to endure short-term disappointment in service of long-term success demonstrates the kind of championship mentality that has defined his career. As we look toward 2026, the story of Hamilton's preparation becomes a fascinating case study in strategic thinking and championship mentality. His ability to maintain focus on future success, despite present challenges, exemplifies the mindset required to compete at Formula One's highest level. Whether this gamble pays off remains to be seen, but the preparation process itself offers valuable lessons about resilience, strategic thinking, and the pursuit of excellence in professional motorsport.